It's time for us to enter one of the harshest and quietest horror worlds imaginable, as the Quiet Place universe has now taken its first step into the video game space, with a story that apparently connects in canon and continuity to the film series. If you've seen the 3 Quiet Place films currently released, then you're going to have a little bit of a head start here when it comes to the story. But don't worry, if you're unfamiliar with this world, you'll be very familiar very shortly. Let's get into the video. I swear, showing a serene scene like this prior to a post-apocalyptic world is becoming a horror trope of its own. We have 2 characters, Alex and Martin, observing a rare deer, admiring its qualities when a loud sound can be heard behind them. This causes Martin to have a look at what it could be, leaving his unexpected friend in the woods alone, and having to chase after him. Honestly, it's pretty peaceful out here. Nothing like a good hike through nature to warm up the spirits. We see some rustling bushes near an abandoned home, not to mention something moving outside the window of the house itself. It does turn out, however, just to be Martin playing a prank on Alex, which she is not a big fan of. Getting scared and flustered since she thought that something had happened to him, saying that she can't lose another person before struggling to breathe. Martin attempts to ask her what she needs for him to do to help, as Martin's mother Laura finds them and helps Alex calm down to breathe properly again. We now jump into day 105 as Martin is sporting a brand new beard. Both Martin and Alex are now whispering quietly to each other, as Martin points out that the rain should help drown out the sound of their voices, but they need to stay careful. They are at the Red Cloud Ranch, searching for food for their community at the hospital, not to mention some extra batteries and computer parts for the torches, radios, and also something that Alex has been building. They agree to split up since the ranch is so huge, opting to use sign language to communicate once they get into the actual premises. It becomes quickly apparent that this is not the serene world that we were just witnessing, as warnings of raiders can be found on the walls of the abandoned ranch. As we journey, Alex will make diary entries and a series of pictures to express how she is feeling in the moment. Throughout our first entry, we can see that the relationship between Laura, Martin's mother, and Alex might be a little strained, since Alex believes that she will blame her for putting her son in danger coming out here looking for supplies, even if it was his idea to come here. A nearby note can be found, mentioning how the writer had travelled out to a nearby waterfall and snapped their fingers and nothing happened. No creatures appeared. He was able to speak at full volume for the first time since the invasion, and still nothing happened. He even yelled, and not a single creature was seen. It turns out that loud natural noises, such as running water, will keep the creatures from hearing you. The building itself is quite the mess, with furniture turned over and claw marks on the walls. There is also more writing on the walls that paint a picture of the people living here before. It is clearly written for a child, telling them to remember to hide and seek, and if they see anything, to tell their dad immediately. These things are everywhere. Sand has been placed throughout the building on normal walking routes, including the stairs, with a stark reminder to Josh to not make a noise. I must say the atmosphere here is hard to explain, since you only notice it when you're actively playing, but holy hell. Things I normally take for granted, like walking at full pace and opening a door at normal speed, is not an option anymore. You have to take real care with every single move that you make, or it will most likely be your last. More reminders are left for Josh, telling him just how much his mother loves him. To be fair, in a world like this, any kind of reassurance that you can give to the little ones, the better off you'll be. Alex takes a tumble as the roof breaks as she's walking alongside it. Thankfully, it seems to have been masked by the sound of the rain, but it does cause her to panic a little bit. And this is even more important to keep in mind, since we've seen that Alex suffers from severe asthma attacks. We get into an office room that contains computer parts that will be perfect for what Alex needs for her project. Alongside it is a map, which shows a circled community that the National Guard could be using. Alex begins feeling nauseous, writing that she thinks that she's caught some kind of stomach bug. We need to find some pills to help with it, and she already ran out of the ones that her father gave her. She also points out that the National Guard could help supply the hospital, and she'll tell Martin about it when she can. We can see a note from a man named Eric. This is Josh's father. He's speaking to his wife, asking if she was scared of him for killing that man, accusing him of putting Joshie in danger. He heard a radio message about the National Guard and how they might have medical supplies and trained soldiers. He wants to take Joshie there, so he will never be scared of another raider ever again, vowing that he will never let her down again. Upstairs is a concerning sight to say the least. Claw marks, giant hole in the wall, and, like 3 liters of blood on the bed. I'm sure it's fine. Another note describes how their mother is scared about something falling from the sky. This is a note describing the events that will take place on day 1 of the invasion. We get to the infirmary and find some much needed nausea pills for Alex, But that is not the only thing she takes an interest in, finding a pregnancy test and using it. It's positive. Congratulations, Alex, you're about to be a mother. But unfortunate about the whole no noise part of this new world. Good luck with the baby crying, laughing, and, well, the baby just doing baby things. This is going to be very complicated. We head back out of the infirmary and find Martin, who escorts Alex down to Eric's safe room, with a reminder not to scream, even in the safe room. Martin is in charge of getting food sorted for the night, while Alex lights the candles around the room. We find a bunch of leftover pictures drawn by Josh, including one of the monsters that now inhabit the world. And damn, Josh, kid's got some talent. We see him with his dad, and he even wrote him a poem. My dad is the best, better than the rest. He keeps me safe all day. He keeps the monsters away. He tells me not to make a peep, and protects me when I sleep, so I can dream of Mum, because when I sleep she's not gone. God damn, that might be the saddest thing I've ever read in my life. Right in the feels. It gets even sadder, with Eric reminding Josh that whenever he sleeps his mother is holding him. God, I hope that Josh makes it out okay, man. I don't think I've ever been so invested in a character that I've never met. It's all just notes, yet I want to protect this kid like my life depends on it. Martin gives Alex a brand new glove, something that she points out as being ugly, but hey, it works and it's practical. They sit and Alex shows him the pregnancy test, which excites the hell out of Martin. Alex begins to have another asthma attack, but thankfully Martin brought an extra inhaler for her this time. Alex is panicked about the idea of having a child in this world, but Martin reassures her that they'll just figure it out. She brings up Laura, saying how she hates Alex ever since something happened, but Martin points out that she will be a grandmother, and Alex saved him that day. It wasn't her fault. He says that something finally good has happened since the world fell apart. She shows him the map to the camp, and they agree to bring food back to the hospital, then head out to the camp to get more, especially since they now have a baby on the way. The two stay overnight. In the morning, Martin puts something extra in her backpack, and points out that the rain has stopped, so every noise has now gotten 1,000 times more loud and dangerous. As they step outside, a loud bang can be heard as something moves in the tree line. Martin gestures for Alex just to stay calm, and she begins to panic. Using the sand walkway, they get to a fallen tree in the road, but somehow, as Alex goes over it, her hand breaks into the tree, causing a sound that attracts one of the creatures. She begins to panic as Martin attempts to keep her calm again, but she begins to have an asthma attack. She reaches for her inhaler and drops it, which causes the creature to just run straight at her. Martin begins yelling at the creature, causing it to focus on him instead, killing Martin while Alex watches. We now jump back on board with Alex after she's arrived back at the hospital. She is making a phonometer, as her father asks if there's anything that he can do to help. Seeing his daughter struggling over losing Martin, he spots the pregnancy test, but explains to Alex that he already knew that she was pregnant, revealing that he is a doctor. He asks her how far along she is, and she tells him a few months, and that the only person that knows about it was Martin before he died. Now, this is day 119 after the invasion, which means that this has been going on for roughly 4 months. And look, I understand in situations like this, people seek comfort and stress relief, but damn, falling pregnant only 2 months after an apocalyptic event where you cannot make any form of noise? I feel if there was ever a time for multiple forms of protection, this is probably it. Alex's father, Kenneth, wants to tell Laura about the baby, saying that it could give her something to focus on other than all of her grief for losing Martin. But Alex doesn't believe she will ever forgive her for what happened. Alex shows him the map to the camp with the National Guard, saying that they can just leave. But Kenneth is wary, saying that the complications that come with a pregnancy in this world, he could care for her best here at the hospital. Not to mention, there is no guarantee that the National Guard are still at the camp, but he does promise her that he'll check it out tomorrow. Alex is feeling nauseous still, and asks for more pills, but apparently somebody broke into the medicine cabinet, and now the de facto leader, Mark, won't let anybody near it. See, Mark took over the leadership of the hospital from Laura after Martin's death, while she grieved and couldn't focus on her role as leader. We can see from notes around the room that Martin and Alex only got together a short while after the apocalypse began, but have known each other since they were children. Remember when Martin told Alex that he put something else in her backpack while at the ranch just prior to his death? Well, it was a note, talking about different baby names and how excited he was to be a father. Damn. It's also shown that Alex has a great love of music, enjoys writing songs and singing, which is an even sadder interest to have in a world where you can't make sound. We tiptoe our way to Martin's room, finding more notes that show that Martin didn't want to just wait around the hospital like his mother wanted him to. Instead, he wanted to step up and contribute to the community, finding supplies for them, which led to the journey to the ranch. and his battling with his mother about the way that she treats Alex, saying that ever since the invasion happened, she's done nothing but make Alex feel miserable about what happened, and how she's already feeling guilty as it is, saying that Alex told him that she wished that it was her instead, and Laura agreed with her. We see at the end that what Alex did saved Martin's life, and that his father wouldn't blame Alex for what happened since he made his choice. Laura, on the other hand, just tells Martin to stay in his own room at night since he's safer that way, away from Alex. We head down the hallway on trails of sand, and there's mattresses to soften the sound between walls. We see Mark harassing one of the survivors about the missing meds, telling him that he will search every person's room until he finds the culprit. Life at the hospital is pretty rough. All food rations have been halved due to shortages, and people are urged to pick up any and all pieces of glass that could cause sound when walking over it. Laura, who was the leader of the hospital, opts to keep the community to a minimum due to the increased risk associated with more people. More people to potentially attract creatures puts everybody at risk, and that is what wiped out the hospital in the first place. Not to mention taking away everybody's cell phones, radios, speakers, anything that could make noise or encourage somebody to speak. We reach the medicine cabinet as Alex is looking for nausea pills, but Mark catches her, whispering to her that the cabinet is off limits and that Laura will be glad to hear that Alex is now leaving her room in the creepiest way possible, something that Alex also points out in her diary entry. On our way back to Alex's room, we drop by Kenneth's room and can see a picture of Alex's mother Julia, along with a written list of things that Kenneth wrote to never forget about Julia. The small things of how she would say certain words or get flustered at the silliest of things. A lot of loss so far in this story, I must say. Alex fixes up the phenomena, which will help gauge noise levels when going around outside. She takes a look at her pregnancy test before falling asleep with it in her hands. When she wakes, Laura is holding it and asking how long Alex has known, before locking her in the room, telling Alex that she will not let her hurt another person in her family. Alex is now officially a prisoner within the hospital, but it's nothing a screwdriver can't fix, or Dad for that matter. Kenneth gets Alex to pack her things and tells her that they're leaving immediately, not believing how Laura could lock her up like that. We go through the vent system as Kenneth tells Alex to follow the train tracks and meet him at the camp. We see from above that Laura and Mark arrive, and she asks him where Alex has escaped to. The argument causes this absolute moron, Mark, to push Kenneth into the glass door, breaking it, and has now attracted creatures to the hospital. Why? For a push? How is that even remotely worth it? Ugh. Let me tell you, the hallways of this hospital are now no joke. These creatures play no games. Make a sound and you are literal minced meat. And what is even scarier is that these things don't eat you like a zombie or a wild animal would. Food is not a concern for them, alright? Killing here is a sport. Imagine the police that get sent out for noise complaints, but on steroids, and them having giant blade arms. We get into Laura's room and she is quite the artist, drawing pictures of animals, Martin, her husband, and Alex. Yeah, not quite as flattering on her one, I must admit. We see that Alex's father and mother were close with Laura and her husband, thanks to a family photo that we can find. We continue at our snail's pace through the hospital and witness one of the group getting butchered by a creature when he decides to run for some reason. 4 months and you didn't realize that was a bad idea, huh? Natural selection at its finest. We headed down to the car park, avoiding every puddle of water that could splash, any glass that could crack, or a rat that could, effective pest control at least. Now, a little inside information for all of you. Since I just talk about lore, you don't really see me as an actual player. Now, I will level with you. I am horrendous, and I mean horrible, at stealth games, at the best of times. But this paired with the microphone enabled is torture. Despite my shortcomings, we do manage to get outside and find ourselves in the woods. We can quickly see that we are not alone as Laura and Mark are now armed and looking for us in the woods as we head towards the campsite. We find a body near the tracks with a note from the National Guard saying that they have an outpost nearby if anybody needs shelter, explaining however that if they make a noise they cannot be helped and he will escort them there if they need it. It didn't go all that well for him, it seems. We follow the tracks and find a home that we'll need to go through. They even have a small safe room downstairs that Alex uses to process what happened at the hospital, terrified at the thought that her father was caught by one of those creatures attacking it. The house contains notes that give some backstory about the residents that once lived here. A woman talks about a young girl that showed up at the doorstep. Initially, her husband Daniel wanted to turn her away, since she could get them killed, but she would remind her husband that refusing a child in a world like this only means that they deserve to die. She goes on to say how she opened a can of food for the young girl, plenty for someone of her size, but she ate the can of food in only a few minutes, showing a smile that reminded the woman of her daughter Chloe before she got sick, wishing that Daniel could have seen it. But she didn't know where he went. She would find her husband sitting in Chloe's room. He was making the bed for Jill, but when he looked at his wife, he was terrified. The same look that he had when looking at Chloe towards the end of her illness. She would give Jill, the young girl, a toothbrush to clean her teeth, but the poor girl's gums were so tender that they bled almost instantly. To her surprise, Daniel came in and wiped the blood from the young girl's chin, not looking Jill in the eyes at all while he did this. When he finished, Jill hugged him, hugging him for so long that she couldn't even remember. Daniel looked at his wife with that same terrified look on his face. She would tuck Jill into Chloe's bed while Daniel waited outside the room, saying how much it made her heart sink, realizing that she hasn't done that since Chloe was alive, saying that she now understands how Daniel is feeling, terrified of feeling that same feeling of loss. She would reassure the girl that the doors and the windows are locked and that nothing will hurt her as the two communicated through notes, as to not make a sound. She realized at that moment that she would kill anyone or anything that laid a hand on Jill. The two would go on to treat Jill like their own daughter. Of course, we don't know what happened to the family, but there are a bunch of dead people in the kitchen, but it seems to be people unrelated to Daniel, Jill, and his wife, thank God. We can find some journal entries from Chloe in 2010 talking about how she was handling her illness and the struggles that she faced. But it's very clear that her mother and father were there for her every step of the way. As Alex goes to leave, Laura sneaks out of the nearby room with a gun, gesturing for Alex to stop. But a panicked Alex falls from the room, attracting a nearby creature. It's sneaking time, and man, these things are quick as hell. It would just straight up smash through the walls. They don't give a crap. Alex gets away, continuing to follow the tracks until she stumbles on a map. It clearly shows the ranch that Martin and her went to when he died. This causes her to cry and look at the glove that she gave him. We now jump back to day 1 of the invasion, and only shortly after that moment that Alex had her asthma attack at the beginning, with Laura asking if she's ready to head back to her house after helping her. They speak on the way back as Alex mentions that she managed to control her asthma almost completely after dealing with it as a child, but it came back shortly after her mother died. Laura sympathizes, saying that she also struggled with her mother's death, but since she was pregnant with Martin, she had no choice but to stay focused. We get back to the house as we see Laura's husband Robert cooking a barbecue, while Kenneth is solemnly drinking a beer. It's Kenneth's 45th birthday, but he is clearly missing his wife greatly. We find a bunch of photos of Alex and Martin when they were younger, showing just how close these two have always been. Not to mention that Martin wanted to be a pilot. The more you know. Laura asks Alex to grab the beers from the back of the van when we see a shotgun, which shocks Alex. After dropping off the beers, we speak with Martin, who is guilty about scaring Alex earlier and causing the asthma attack. Alex quickly forgives him, saying that he can at least now say that for the first time in his life, he took a girl's breath away. The two laugh and head inside and get a can opener for Laura. Some certificates inside show that Laura has a master's degree in wildlife management, while Robert has a doctorate in medicine, not to mention all the medical and wildlife trophies that these two have earned over the years. Alex and Martin bond over Laura's vinyl collection, which leads to Martin asking Alex to sing, again showing her big interest in music. He wants to show her something in the attic, so we head upstairs. Inside Laura and Robert's room is a message from Kenneth, asking Robert for a loan to pay for Julia's treatments, saying that he is completely broke and he needs help, showing that Alex's mother died due to some illness. The complicated thing here, however, is another letter that is found in the room from a lawyer to Robert about an injury that Robert caused his client in the Kinderskill forest. Robert offered $250,000 in compensation, but the lawyer doesn't feel that it's an appropriate amount for the emotional hardship that his client has had to deal with since the injury. Robert might not be in a financial position to help Kenneth with Julia's medical payments thanks to his legal issue. We can see Laura has been featured and interviewed in a magazine about her conservation efforts and population control strategies. Inside the attic, Martin shows Alex the vinyl collection that they own, with Alex noticing the guns on show. Martin says just to ignore them, and that his mother doesn't like actually hunting animals, but sometimes you need to maintain balance in the population. Alex hears something outside the window, and we see Kenneth crying about the death of his wife, saying that he's a doctor, and what is the point if he can't even save his own wife's life? We then see a meteor, or a comet, falling from the sky. This is what carried the creatures to Earth and began the invasion. We jump back with Alex at day 119, reaching the outskirts of the camp. We can see that numerous bear traps have been set up, with one woman finding herself on the wrong end of one. Great, more obstacles. Thankfully, a message on the camp gate says that the National Guard is here to help and are inside. We see a light flashing inside the camp and we need to check it out, but we can see that it didn't go exactly well for the occupants of this place. The circumstances are similar here at the camp, with many of the people here being children that were attending when the meteor hit. Many of the camp counselors died early on, with one of the staff not knowing what killed them. The National Guard would later use the camp as a home base while protecting the remaining children. Some of them would travel north, south, west and east in search of other survivors. Pointing out that civilians have been spotted at the hospital, but all attempts at radio contact have been ignored. It mentions using discretion when telling civilians about their location. While they are there to help, they cannot risk having too many people, since it could be a repeat of what happened at the docks. The fact that the National Guard never showed up at the hospital, despite attempting to make contact, is also not a great sign. We get inside the radio station and find Kenneth inside. He has however injured his leg, but he's relieved to see that Alex is safe and points out that Laura is not well and they need to stay careful. He notices Alex's damaged glove and gives her a new one, but she refuses and begins crying, saying how much she's struggling with losing Martin. Kenneth comforts her, but they have a more immediate issue. They need to get the radio working, which requires someone to repair the antenna. Kenneth initially wants to go himself, but Alex points out that he'll just get himself killed with a leg injury, and she goes instead. She is given a radio that he will use to navigate her to the antenna using the map. We find a dead guy with a note and picture of a young girl named Ashley. It gives some insight into what just happened here with the bear traps and also what happened after the National Guard left the camp. It mentions how Ashley loves music and singing, the gentlest kid you could ever meet. She would sing musical songs, but oddly she would only sing the villain songs. He asked her why she would only want to sing the songs sang by bad guys, and Ashley would respond that it's boring being the hero. Everybody knows how to be good, but being evil is only something that you can do in your imagination. He goes on to explain that it was the only time that he ever knew that Ashley was completely wrong. Some people don't know how to be good. People that make the world a colder or crueler place without giving it a second thought. He goes on to use the person that he is addressing in the letter as an example, taking whatever he wanted, causing thousands of people like Ashley to starve and to not bat an eye. He doesn't even blame the monsters, he blames him. He might not be one of the raiders that took everything from him, but he is just as guilty, since he stole something from someone who needed it, mentioning how now that the National Guard is left, it's only the two of them left, hoping that he doesn't get caught in the first trap or the second, wanting him to believe that he'll get out alive, wanting him to hope, then for him to know what it feels like when all of that hope dies. This guy was getting hunted by John Wick himself, god damn. We get to the antenna and fix it. Kenneth plays a radio message that is repeating, telling all people that hear the message to convene at the harbour in Clinton. They are loading boats and taking people to an island out east, saying how the creatures are unable to swim. Now you might be wondering, if the creatures can't swim, how are the other continents doing? Did it only happen in the United States? Where did the meteors fall? Well, unfortunately we don't really learn about it within the game, but since this is linked with the films, I will give a little bit of outside lore for my friends that might not have seen the movies. The invasion itself began on June 18, 2020, aka day 1 of the invasion. A series of meteors would strike different parts of the Earth. There were a total of 127 confirmed landing sites, including New York, London, Shanghai, Paris, Berlin, Moscow, to name a few. I'll put a list up on the screen of all the countries and cities, or towns, confirmed to be affected by the creatures, which are called Death Angels in the films, if you're curious. Obviously, it's likely that more countries could be confirmed in future media regarding the universe, but it's good to know anyway. Also, an interesting thing to know is that the largest of all the meteors that landed during the invasion actually hit Mexico. That hit with the force of an atomic bomb and had the largest amount of death angels on it. So bad news to all my Mexican friends. Anyway, back to Alex. We begin walking back to the radio station to meet up with Kenneth, but we can hear him talking with Laura, who has snuck up on him. She asks him where Alex is, but he tells her that he doesn't know, clearly concerned by the weapon that she's holding. Laura tells him that she would never hurt him, and that they should have listened to her at the hospital. She would have kept them safe, saying that she locked Alex up to protect her. Kenneth asks Laura who she was protecting her from, as she responds that she was protecting Alex from herself. Everyone she loves ends up dead, saying that Robert and Martin both died because of her, and now with this baby, pointing out to Kenneth that he's a doctor. He should know how complicated this birth will be purely due to Alex's asthma, let alone everything else that's going on in the world. She will do everything in her power to save her grandchild. Their grandchild. The radio message plays again, and Laura realizes that Kenneth intends to meet Alex at the docks, saying that she will go to find Alex, and that Kenneth can join her if he wants. He tells her to stop, and grapples with her to take the gun from her hands, worried about her intentions with Alex. In the struggle, we hear a gunshot go off on the radio. We see Laura standing over Kenneth's dead body, not believing what just happened. A death angel is attracted to the gunshot and attacks Laura, wounding her, but she manages to get up and run. Alex has now lost the last person close to her as she struggles to cope with the loss of her father. The only thing left for her to do is to head towards the harbour. We get out of camp, barely, and get to a nearby waterfall. This allows Alex to finally cry, not having to worry about the sounds that she makes, and actually be able to deal with her grief. She falls asleep there, and we awake in the morning on day 120. The way to the harbour is treacherous, with Alex having to traverse a bridge in the process. We utilise sandbags to help us reach the bridge, and enter a train cart. Inside, it's filled with a bunch of Dungeons & Dragons character sheets made by children, likely the ones from the camp as they attempt to hold on to some normalcy and actually just have some fun. It has a bunch of one-shot campaign notes and a rare sight of light in a pretty bleak world. Along this bridge are a heap of death angels, likely due to the bridge's structural stability falling apart, things breaking off or carts rolling over, causing enough sound to attract a lot of the nearby creatures to this area. We reach a very questionable train cart that does not look like a good idea at all, and sure enough, not a great idea. Thankfully, the 70-foot drop doesn't kill Alex, but it has caught the attention of 3 death angels. We sneak past them using the water and climb back up to the top of the bridge. When we reach the top, the ladder falls off, and we need to make a break for it to a nearby building. Commando sliding into it. Damn, not bad, Alex. We jump back to day 1, as Alex is travelling with Robert, Martin and Laura. Kenneth went back to the hospital shortly after the meteor hit, not realising what was actually going on. Robert gives Alex a gun as they attempt to hold the creatures off while driving towards the hospital. It is absolute mayhem. Any car driving on the roads or making noise is a target, and the Death Angels are making short work of them. We get into a tunnel as the group get into a car accident, leaving Martin injured. A Death Angel is nearby looking into the vehicle, but Alex has some pretty damn good trigger discipline. Martin awakes and yells in pain, and when the creature attempts to kill him, Alex shoots it in the head but doesn't hurt the creature due to its strong hide. Robert stands up to shoot it but is killed by the creature as we see Laura look at Alex in anger. Wait, you blame Alex for that? Are you kidding me? You and your son would be pieces of spam if Alex didn't get its attention there. Wow, I feel for Alex, man. Damn. We're now back to day 120 as we find ourselves in a water pump station. It is filled with our blade friends due to the turbines, running water and general noise of machinery. We find another safe room that the pump station staff were using shortly after the invasion. The door, however, is very squeaky and almost gets Alex killed, but thankfully it holds back the creature. Inside are a bunch of notes from a few staff members. They're concerned about their family members and have no cell phone reception. They contemplate the idea that survivors would need clean water, and to come to a mutual agreement that the 2 of them will stay in the facility to keep it running, with the hope that it helps somebody out there. Alex begins feeling nauseous again, and takes a moment to calm herself and take some medication. She sits a minute and sings to her baby before readying herself for the final stretch of the journey. More notes show a kid that drew pictures, explaining that he and his parents are going on a real boat to a safe place with no monsters. We can also find a touching story from the child's mother, explaining how a soldier gave her son a book on sailing, something that she points out as being the greatest gift ever given to her son, as for the first time since the invasion, he was happy and excited again, drawing every kind of boat imaginable. Unfortunately, after giving the boy the book, the soldier left with his unit but never returned. The mother hopes that whoever finds this message knows that an unnamed soldier gave her son the greatest gift possible: hope. We see that one of the 2 staff members that vowed to stay and keep the building running actually went missing, with the other one thinking that the other simply abandoned them at the facility and lied about wanting to stay and keep the facility running. Another note shows that the individual that went missing intended to go and fix some pipes that were burst, but he was never seen again. The remaining staff member would have to go and fix those pipes, described by his colleague, stating that while others spent their last minutes with loved ones, he has been spending it with pipes, telling Pat, his colleague, how much he resents him for leaving if he actually did, and that he died fixing a pipe that he should have been maintaining. After fixing more pipes, we eventually get outside again, which is a big relief for Alex. It didn't seem long for you folks, but I was in there a while. We get into the harbour town and find letters left behind by the people in the National Guard as they took a load of people onto boats and to take them to the islands. One of the letters is a warning about the severe amount of dust at the boat location, saying that it's so bad that people in there without gas masks were coughing, which obviously alerted nearby creatures, and to be careful. Oh yeah, on the note of caution, one of those creatures get attracted by one of the electronically controlled doors closing, and enters the store that Alex is hiding in. As the televisions begin emitting static in a high-pitched frequency, it appears to have actually hurt the creature, as it lashes out and runs away from the noise. Obviously, these things have incredible hearing, but with incredible hearing comes a sensitivity to high-pitched frequencies. That also seems to be some kind of weakness that it has. If you've watched the films, you would probably know this already, but the game shows it off also. Alex finds and plays a short song for her parents and Martin. The piano is turned off, of course, and there's no sound that comes from it, but it's a nice gesture. We reach the harbour and can find a note mentioning how very few ships actually remain, saying that many of them were attacked and sank before they could even get far enough from land to not be vulnerable to the creatures, stating that the chances of getting off without any of these things hearing and attacking you in time is not odds that they would take. We can also see from some of the notes that the National Guard have left a single boat in the harbour, just in case somebody that was following their radio message makes it here. And while they're not there to help escort them, it could be their one chance of surviving and making it to the island. As we attempt to get the electronics online and gain ourselves access to the boat, we find another letter explaining what happened at the docks during the National Guard's evacuation. A fireman intended to get to the docks to help the evacuation with his colleagues, but was attacked when one of the firemen actually turned the siren on in the truck. He describes it as feeling like a train smashed into the side of their fire truck, killing one of them instantly and crushing another. The survivors would need to go to the dock on foot, but by the time they arrived, there was only carnage left. Boats torn in half, bodies on the dock. But interestingly, it didn't look like the creatures killed the people on the docks. The people killed each other trying to get onto the boats. Bodies in the water cut up from the propeller as the boat sank. The group would go on to dispose of the bodies and each went their own way, having to deal with the idea of what is to come. We start opening the final doors to get to the boat as the dust begins giving Alex an asthma attack, leading her to faint. We see that somebody found her and is pulling her to safety. It's Laura, who apologizes to Alex, offering her a gas mask, telling Alex to take it and to leave. Alex allows Laura to feel her grandchild for the very first time, to which Laura again tells her how sorry she is for everything. Laura quickly leaves and Alex takes the gas mask. We reach the boat as the siren at the nearby lighthouse begins drawing their attention, likely done by Laura to give Alex enough time to escape. There is one creature, however, that makes a jump for the boat, narrowly missing, but it has managed to hold on to the back of the boat. The high-pitched frequency of the radio causes the armor plating on its face to disperse, which gives Alex an opportunity to shoot it with a nearby shotgun left by the National Guard. This kills the creature, and Alex manages to get far enough from land to be safe. The final scene shows Alex on the boat as somebody begins speaking on the radio, asking if anybody reads them. Alex sighs, knowing that she and her child are now safe, thus ending the story of A Quiet Place: The Road Ahead. If you ever watched the Quiet Place 2 movie, then the whole island plotline and the events at the docks will sound very familiar to you, since it is covered in different parts of that film. I must say I did enjoy the game. A lot of ambience and mechanics that I've not really had to deal with before, and a nice simple story that we can all get behind. I think what I liked most, however, was actually just finding the smaller stories of people in different houses or locations that we visited. If you made it until the end of the video, write the word shush, because it seems quite fitting and it lets me know. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, as it helps the video and channel out a bunch, and check out some of the other stories that we've covered on the channel. And also to subscribe to stay informed on our future uploads. Until next time guys, peace.